when I'm practicing, I'm actually practicing and feeling what a good swing feels like. So the question that you probably have is, Kyle, when you're doing this and you're setting up with these feedback stations, how are you actually going and setting up? All right, guys, we are back for part 2 of a super controversial topic about how to go about properly shallowing the shaft. Now, if you checked out the first video on this, which had hundreds of thousands of views, we have gone through those comments, and thank you so much for commenting in that video about what are the things and what are some of the questions that you have for the next stage of how to go about shallowing the shaft? Because the truth is the golfing industry has lied to you. They have made this way more complicated than it is, and it is not that complicated. Essentially, if you can raise your arms like this with a little bit of twisting, you can essentially shallow the shaft. So in this video, we're going to go and kind of recap a little bit of that, but then I'm going to give you some secrets as to what essentially the left arm does and some science to actually validate what it is that we're doing to shallow the shaft so that you can be 100% convicted on what it is that you need to be doing, and I'm going to give you ways so that you can properly practice it. Okay, so first and foremost, let's take some time just to recap part 1 of how to shallow the shaft. And in part 1, right, we talked about really what the role of the right arm is, the trail arm. So if you could, just take your right arm and point it right at my face, right? Just like you're pointing, like you, right? So you're going to point right at me, and then what I want you to do is I want you to make a right angle, basically an L, with your arm, and then I want you to feel like you're catching raindrops on your top of your hand. When you do that, what you're going to see is that your thumb is also aimed out to the trail side behind you to the right if you're a right-handed golfer. And this is the position in which your right hand is at the top. So if I do this, I bend over and I turn, you can see that that shaft would be perfectly on plane. So then to shallow the shaft with your right hand, you just have to then unfold your right arm. Not very complicated, right? Because if I take it up to the top and I set up and I kind of get my right hand in that correct position, and then I lower the shaft, you can see how the club would be on that plane. That would be the perfect plane to swing it down. But then the question comes of what about the left arm? Because obviously the left arm is attached to the grip as well. So you go, what about the feeling of that? Maybe you're like, I feel the golf swing with my left arm. I go, okay, well, let's talk about what the left arm does. So first and foremost, one thing to clear up some confusion, right, is that because you kind of see some of these tips on Instagram or YouTube, and it's just like, I'm like, oh man, that's too bad that they're saying it because they're not correct, is what the left arm does. So with the left arm, if this is pointing at you, this would be what's called this 0. In the backswing, our left arm will only adduct 10 degrees. That is not very much. Whereas a lot of times you'll be like, I'm trying to get my left arm to be like across my chest. The problem with of actually doing that is if I were to have my left arm across my chest, my right arm is attached. So now what's going to happen is this club is going to be really, really across the line. So if I pull my arm all the way across my chest, you can see that the club does not look like it has a lot of symmetry. What we want is, like, if we were to go up to the top and swing, we want to have it so that if you were to draw a line from the ball to the grip to the shaft, it's all on one plane, because that would be an on-plane swing. And that's what we're trying to do here, right? Like, I am not reinventing the wheel for you of what an on-plane swing is. I am just trying to build a swing for you that is built around physics and geometry. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just kind of the messenger telling you, hey, here's all the science, here's what everything is, kind of debunking some myths and saying, here's how you go about building a swing. And that symmetry that you see on the swing, that's what you see with players like Tiger Woods and Justin Rose and Adam Scott and all those players. That is what you're seeing in their swing. You're going, man, that swing looks great. So if our right arm is going up and down and kind of rotating, our left arm does something similar with a little bit of differences. And that's what I want to spend some time with right now talking to you about. So the left arm, we know, kind of pulls in just a little bit, let's say like 2 inches, and then it moves up and down, and it moves up and down actually 47 inches up and down, which I'm going to show you that here in a second. But it moves up and down 47 inches. So if this is my swing at setup, my left arm, if I were to have like a ruler that was measuring 47 inches, you can see it would go down at 0 and then up to 47. So if I was setting up and it was at 0 and then my left arm went up to 47 and then I turned, you can see my left arm would now be in the perfect spot, right? But there's also one little secret that you need to know about with your left arm. not only does it move up and down 47 inches, but it also rotates. So now I'm going to take my thumb, and as it's moving up and down, I'm going to basically be rotating so my thumb looks out to the right, which is kind of similar to the right hand. So what this does is this is kind of the way your left arm works in the backswing, to where you're going up, to where now your palm would be facing down, like you could do like an underneath slap if that was a thing, or you were getting ready to kind of give someone a high five this way, right? So now as I move up and down 47 inches, and then I rotate, you can see how now my thumb is rotated, and I took it up to the top, that would be now on plane. So that's really how those left arms and right arms work. But what I want to show you is how simple this is, and how a plane board, just a simple plane board, which is built around geometry and physics, actually validates what we're saying. The best thing that I have to show you, it's actually out back in the parking lot. So let's go. Now, it's not the dumpster. The dumpster is not the best thing I own. But what the best thing that I do own is this plane board, because this summarizes the simplicity of the golf swing, and it is not more complicated than this. So to illustrate the point, when we are inside, if I were to set up, right, and I were to keep my hands at the same level, you could see how low my hands would be, which would not be correct. What we need to be doing is, as we go back, we're raising our arms 47 inches, twisting them to the right and up to the top. This puts the club in a perfect position. And then to make it shallow and come back on plane, I just have to lower my arms again. It's not that hard. So as I set up, I take it back, I go up to the top, and then to lower my arms, I'm just lowering, and then that puts the club right back on the plane. From here, all I have to do is just turn, and now I can turn as hard as I want, and that will help manage the face so that I can hit perfect shots. But you can see, I don't have to do all this like funky stuff with my body. I don't have to like twist my hands a bunch. I don't have to do anything overly complicated. I just need to raise and lower my arms. So I go back, I turn, I raise my arms, I shift a little bit to the lead side, lower my arms back down, and then turn and fold. And that is exactly all you need to actually shallow the shaft. So now what I want to do is, obviously you're probably not going to be giving a plane board and putting this puppy on the range. So what I want to do is I want to show you how you can practice this in the convenience of your own home, your house, like on the range, whatever, so that ultimately you can feel what this actually is, so that you can properly shallow the shaft. All right, so I'm gonna show you exactly how to practice this, but I have one more piece of evidence that I wanna show you, just so that you are fully convicted on what it is that you are doing. So here at the Golf Room, we have this technology that is absolutely epic. It's incredible. It's called SportsBox, and it allows us to measure basically everything under the sun that your body does. And in this graph, you can see that this graph is measuring the mid-hands lift of the swing. Now, the green line is a player that I had in here. He was a tour player. He's a +3 handicap, working to go on tour. And then the purple line is the cumulative average of 100 tour players. So it's not just one tour player. It's the average of all of the tour players. And what you can see is, at address, their hands are at 0. So obviously, this would be where my hands are right now. That would be calculated as 0. And as they go back, you can see that their hands are lifting up to 47 inches in the backswing. So that's where they're going back. They're lifting their arms to 47. Then in the downswing, you can see they're lowering their arms all the way down. Then they go back up. And when we talked about symmetry at the beginning, look at this, 47 inches at the top and 47 inches in the follow-through, which is where you see the person's backswing, basically their hands would basically be in the same spot as they were in the backswing, meaning a really pretty swing has symmetry. So this just goes to give you more evidence that your arms go from 0 to 47, 47 to 0, and then back up to 47. So it's basically just like raising and lowering your arms with a little bit of twisting. And if you can do that, you can shallow a shaft. That's a main, really, really important ingredient to shallowing the shaft. So now you go, the last piece, and thank you so much for sticking with me, you go, how do you actually go about practicing this other than just going up and down? Because I am a really, really big believer that when you're practicing, You need to make sure that you're actually practicing and you're doing it correctly. I don't want you to ever have to feel anything. I want to make ways so that when you practice, you are actually feeling what is correct. And then that feeling, because of the feedback that I'm about to show you, will tell you what proper is. I don't want you to determine what proper is. I want the feedback to tell you what proper is. So what we're going to use with feedback is we're just going to use a shaft and a noodle. Now, I didn't invent this. This was invented by Ben Hogan, right? And Ben Hogan, by many players, many pros, many teachers, is known to have basically the greatest swing of all time. And if you looked at Ben Hogan's 5 fundamentals of golf, and you'll see kind of this picture overlay coming at you right now, you'll see that he had in that 5 fundamentals of golf, he had a piece of glass that he had as a visualization over his right shoulder to make sure that his hands were in the right spot and they had the right amount of lift. So the beauty is now just with a stick, I can set it up and actually practice and know exactly that I'm doing exactly what I want in the raising and lowering of my arms. And that's going to give me the feedback that I need so that when I'm practicing, I'm actually practicing and feeling what a good swing feels like. So the question that you probably have is, Kyle, when you're doing this and you're setting up with these feedback stations, how are you actually going and setting up? Like, how do you actually do that? Which is a really important question, right? Because if it's not set up right, then it's not going to work out for you. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the stick and we're going to set it up and we're going to get in our posture so that the shaft and the alignment stick and the shaft is 2 inches above my right shoulder. And then I'm just going to be set up and hit balls in that spot. So I'm going to hit balls from this very geographic location every time. So if I'm hitting balls outside, I might tee it up because I'm going to be hopefully hitting in the same spot, and hopefully you're taking a divot, right? So I'm setting up, and now when I go back, as I get up to the top, if my left arm is kind of matching and basically barely touching the noodle, right, at this 45-degree angle, 2 inches above my right shoulder, now I know that my hands are in the right spot, and now I just have to lower my hands and then turn. Whereas if I'm setting up and I'm like, and banging into it, you know that your hands lifted above that 47-inch mark, and now your hands are too high. You're going to have to loop them and do a whole bunch of compensations to really make that thing on plane. But this will actually give you the feedback to say your hands are in the perfect spot. And that's the key, is that when you're practicing, we want to make it so that you're actually practicing and you're not just like trying to feel it. The feedback stations like this really make it so that you are giving basically the highest return on investment for your time, because there's nothing worse than going to the range, hitting balls, and you're like, did I even do it? I don't know. And that's where my friend Mr. Noodle comes in to give you the feedback, just like Ben Hogan had with the pane of glass. So, and maybe if you like this video, maybe like, subscribe, and send it to another buddy of yours who's golfing, who needs to hit better shots, because it is our mission here at the Golf Room to help every single player fulfill their own unique golfing design. And that's what we're after, is to help the most amount of golfers around the world. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at this video next.